the city accepting the streets within accepting the maintenance of the roads, and basically just to get, not work out any of the details, which is where Scott and Brian would come in, but just to get to make sure we were on the same page. It got a little heated real quickly at the meeting the other night, and I just wanted to see if we're kind of going in the same direction. No, it's not the fault. It's just kind of the way it goes. I definitely wouldn't put it all on your shoulders. But they do want us to end up accepting the streets. They do understand that there's that question of the survey, the as-built survey out there. Nobody knows, and I was going to ask you, and I told Roxanne to do it, I would ask you to see if there's a way to find out how the courts have ruled in a situation like this. And this may be an answer, or a question without an answer. It may be a question with a very clear answer. I don't know how precedent works. I'm no attorney. But it seems to me that this has probably been adjudicated somewhere where a developer has gone belly up, it's now gone, and there's still this big expense hanging out there. Who does that expense devolve to? Is it now in the city's court, or is it now in the...
I'll do a little bit more looking at the law is clear that until the city accepts maintenance, voluntarily assumes that, we're not responsible for the construction or maintenance. That's in the statute. So when something's that clear in the law, it may not take a court case because it's not our responsibility. So who's responsible?
So a lack of a court case might indicate that it's, you know, that's the overriding law.
The unique thing here is because it's a dedicated right-of-way, and so it's public, and that normally we would maintain public right-of-way, you know, that in the city we do. But in this case, we haven't assumed that it's just kind of a unique situation. And
we did also talk about whether or not perhaps we could assume the stormwater at the same time. They weren't very interested in that. Their documents largely deal with stormwater. They do have reserves that they've been building up, which is actually quite laudable. And they recognize those expenses and have been building reserves and are doing well with that. So they're really not that interested on the face of it to turn over any of the stormwater to us, but they are going to talk about it to their HOA.
Have they also been building up plans to maintain those roads?
No.
They haven't?
No, because they never thought they were theirs. They still don't think they're theirs.
Tim Durkin said they were.
Oh,
but, yeah.
And I think that I saw something that they have to be doing that. I'm getting some
an interesting
paperwork.
question.
They're supposed to be holding up reserves for maintenance of the roads.
Mm-hmm.
They might have just looped it all underneath the stormwater. It might be stormwater.
And that might be why they don't want to give us both things, because with that.
Well, they're also supposed to annually provide us the finances of the HOA and everything.
But that's where that meeting was this morning. I want to let you know that we had that. They're going to talk about possibility of maybe bringing in stormwater to the same question. Scott, you had brought that up, and it was a good question to ask. And so they're asking the question. That's as far as we went with that. I just wanted to see if we were really on the same page, that they really did want us to accept the maintenance of the roads, and they do. We got to get past this. You know, it could be $20,000 to $30,000 for that as-built survey. The numbers I'm hearing.
well, you know,
Perhaps we could split that cost. Perhaps since we let the bond go initially, since we let that bond go, maybe that was our chance to get that covered by that bond. But so we may have dropped the ball there as a city back in the day. I don't know. I'm going to leave that in your report. If you could find something, how long would it take to research that?
Yeah, I mean, we've already done some looking at it, but I'll do it, but I won't spend much time on it. If it doesn't, when you have statutes, you have something called statutes annotated that cites every case that cited that statute. I've read all the cases that cited the statute beyond with the dedication. And there's nothing that talks about exactly what we're talking about.
Interesting.
So, usually the property owner is responsible for land, for dangerous conditions on land. And so that would be my concern, that this is our property, that is dedicated to the public. However, the statute seems to create a lack of responsibility for us to maintain the right of way even though as a property owner, we normally would. So the one thing I would look to is to see, is there ever been a situation where a city has been sued for someone getting hurt on right of way, say unopened unapproved right of way, that it was still the city's property and they're responsible for that dangerous condition, even though the law says you don't have an obligation to maintain. That doesn't divest you of your responsibility as an owner. So I'll look at that. That's the question.
And the only other thing that I wanted to bring up is we got a mold test done before the last commission meeting. I didn't bring it up in the last commission meeting because that's why we had it in Hopkins Hall, was we found some black mold that was hazardous to humans up in the second story here. And so we said, okay, let's go to Hopkins Hall, and then we'll look at it further. We tested also, then after that we tested downstairs to see if the staff was at risk. Didn't find any like that down here. But we still do have a very old building with a leaky roof. The mold mitigation specialist is like, there is no reason for me to look at this building hardly because you've still got a leaky roof. Trying to mitigate mold when you got water coming in is
Ridiculous.
Yeah. He didn't say that, but I was trying to remember his word, but it doesn't make sense. So we need to decide, or at least be thinking towards what we want to do. Do we want to spend the 70 on the roof, then maybe 50 more on the air conditioning to get all of that properly insulated so it doesn't leak into that ceiling or sweat in that ceiling? And just the sweat is creating a lot of that moisture problem we see in that ceiling in there. So that's 120 or so thousand based on estimates that we've gotten in the past. And
Didn't the city a few years ago replace an AC system or something? I just had this recollection of that.
we had been hoping for some grant money that Daisy had put in for, but that failed in last.
Well, the problem is not the air conditioning unit. The problem is that they have put the ductwork in between the old ceiling and the new ceiling, and they've got like a 2-foot space in there.
It's kind of wedged in, it's not well insulated.
And
did not insulate.
that's right, they didn't insulate it, and the roof is leaking also. So now you've got all of that moisture plus the air conditioning, so you've got everything. It's very wet in there, down here too, but.
We had a price last year when I submitted the thing to the state legislature from a reputable company, $50,000. This year I submitted another application for the legislature, which I'm not optimistic about, but I upped it to $70,000 because of inflation. And we do need to do that. The remediator is just a waste of our time and our effort if we don't fix the roof.
And then the next big issue is the windows, which also make this a leaky, if you will, building in that fresh air is constantly coming through these windows because they don't seal well. And they are old windows.
Actually, I hear a lot of them are nailed shut, keep them from falling out.
Probably.
Which is a fire code hazard.
I don't think so. But to replace all of the windows in the building would be about $250,000. So that's another huge part of keeping this building alive, would be really addressing that window issue. So this building has 350, I haven't done the math right, but 120 plus 250, it has that much worth of the basics to keep this building alive. Do we want to keep this building alive, or do we want to demolish it at some point? I know, yeah, that's it. But why not?
Until God demolishes it, we should try to maintain it.
Why? I'm not arguing. I'm just saying how, you know.
He just wants some reason, like,
Yeah.
because it is a lot of money and it's never gonna stop, is what he's saying, it's basically.
I'm not saying we should tear it down. I'm saying.
And I'm not
There are new repair techniques that can seal it better than it has been done in the past. But the building is one of our biggest historical attractions.
I was just gonna say it's an historical thing.
It is. Oh, I agree. I'm not
I don't think
disagreeing
it's
with
on
that.
any historic registry anymore, but it should.
I didn't say it's
You
historical
could just-
registry,
you
it's
could
a
just say it's
historical
old.
attraction.
It's
It's a historical attraction.
A lot of people that live here went to school here.
I did,
I did too.
our kids did, you know.
So I get that, but we also, I mean, we're the stewards of the pocketbook here. And we've got to ask the question before we just start spending the money. I feel like we do. So that's what I'm doing now. I don't think we're going to make that choice here today. I know we're not, it's just a workshop. But I got to bring it up so that y'all can be thinking about it. I don't ever like to spring anything on you. We got this, we didn't have time to do it in the last meeting, but here it is. This is what we're looking at. Now y'all know, you could be thinking about it. You could be talking about it to your constituents. That's all I wanted to do here today, is just to bring it up to you. Lee, if you would share with Rick the basics of this, if you haven't already. I don't know if it...
Mayor,
Yes?
could you do the windows in phases?
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
That could have a lot of expenditure.
Unless if they're leaking, but then you're gonna
We can-
already working and they're leaking.
We can do each section in a phase, like do the roof, do the AC,
Yeah.
then do the
Well, that
north
really-
side, the east side, the south side.
And there may be grants that we could pursue. We got this one from the state that we look for, this legislative grant through the state. There may be others.
There's another one, it's through the Department of State, it's $500,000 maximum for historic building restoration. And I don't know how competitive they are, they have to be sent in. I think the window opens April to May for this year, they do it once a year. And we can certainly submit something for that.
I heard those historical grants are
Very
competitive,
good,
so,
yeah.
Very,
but I think ours would fit into it
oh, I think so
quite
too.
well.
Right.
They have to spend some money up front on architects and stuff like that. And not only architects they like. That's part of
Some
it.
good ones.
Yes.
I thought something had already been started on the historical repair.
When Daisy was mayor, she put in for a grant through the legislature, and it passed all the way through, but it was vetoed by the governor. Because
It was.
what I got
third.
third hand is that, well, cities need to take care of themselves. Why should we be doing this? Why should the state give a city?
But it was also election year, right?
That's-
And it was 3.1 billion.
I think
total
DeSantis may be
that
facing
went
bigger
down.
elections here soon.
Right, right, so it's part of a bigger picture.
It was, and it always will be.
So
yeah.
fingers crossed, it's not
But
election.
you word up the historical significance of the building being made out of long bricks.
Right.
It
The only
was
thing-
the first integrated school in Volusia County.
Yeah, yes, yeah,
That
definitely.
would have more of a ring to it, they should, but.
Yeah.
The only thing I think, if we're gonna do a repair, we should look into it and do the right repair, because if this was done right,
You got
as
that
I
right.
go back,
That's right.
we wouldn't have this problem.
Perhaps.
Inside too, I was involved in that, and
So you
it
didn't,
wasn't, as
you didn't do it right, now you're.
no, I dropped my hand and it spoiled everything.
No, we did have, Lee had somebody look at doing a full renovation on this building. I mean, a full historic renovation. And just as a ballpark number, and this was an experienced gentleman who could give you that, and you know, those are worth something. He came up with, was it 19 million? Yeah, so we're not going there, unless the governor were to suddenly say.
And another thing is
To
that,
do it right,
yeah, but the thing is, we gotta look into it, because I was involved in the other repair. The repair, before we do the roof, we should look into what's between the roof and what has to be done there
That's right.
first. That's the first thing we have to do.
okay.
You just throw a new roof on here, then you gotta tear the whole inside
Well,
out
they already said
to
that.
fix it,
He
you know
already
what I
said
mean?
that.
It's gotta be looked into to be doing the repairs right.
Well, and also realistically, this was a center building, and then they added 2 exterior sections. Anytime you have a joint like that, that creates roof issues, big time. And so we'll probably never fully get away
I
from
hate
that.
to see the interior on this get gutted because
Well, that
the
upstairs
layers
definitely has to
have
come
the
down.
plaster walls, not the
Well, I don't want to
front
either,
wall.
yeah.
I'll just put it
The
this way, if you
ceiling
look at those
definitely has
windows,
to come down.
if you looked at how those windows were installed and what was done, you can see what leaks were doing.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I've been up there and we toured them.
One last,
Tony, actually, Tony and myself and one Colvin up there with the window situation.
One last much smaller thing, the fire exit door going out of the auditorium there that is still, I've had actually, Mark Shuttleworth actually pulled the door off and took it to try and see if he could get it out of it. It's very short, it's like a 6-foot door, it's a very odd shaped door. It wouldn't fit any kind of current code, so to replace it would be a nightmare. But that's what Mark was trying to do. I called Tony Spaziani, who can build absolutely anything. And he said he will be glad to build us a door. He's gonna take that door that he actually got from Mark and give me a bid on recreating that door with the old hardware that was already permitted and everything, just basically replacing the wood rot, all they would be doing. Wouldn't be re-engineering it, just replacing the rot wood, which is basically all the wood, which means, you know what it means. And Corey Spaziani is giving us an estimate for the jam around that, replacing that. So we're going to be getting those two estimates, which I will bring to you at some point. Probably, neither one of them give me a ballpark, but that type of work doesn't come real cheap. It'll seem ridiculous, but I think we need to do it.
Once the elevator keeps working, I don't give a damn.
As long as we don't have to use that fire escape.
If you don't mind.
Of course not.
I just wanted to give a quick update about Arbor Day because there's been some really awesome things happening with it. And I didn't get a chance to update you guys last time. So we've already raised $2,500 for the trees. That was part, our goal was $3,000. And we still have a few other irons in the fire, so I'm optimistic about moving the full goal. Waste Pro is in for $500, Collinsville Pools is in for $500, Beery Roofing put in $1,000, and Jeff Ritchie's company, Edward Jones, put in $500. So I just wanted to update you on that. And we have a few programming flyer things happening. You'll probably see this come out via email here shortly, but we'll be getting the gems involved, and I guess I'll give you a more full update on the next meeting. But just wanted to let you know we're really close to meeting our goals.
Good.
It's awesome.
That's really good.
Did you approach our construction companies on Ohio?
What is it?
Did you approach our construction companies on Ohio?
I do not think that most of the construction companies on Ohio have yet been approached. There are a few reached out,
We got
previously.
Dennis with the electric company, he's big with Lake Helen, and
That's on my radar.
the gas plumbing company, and then the construction one on the corner down there.
Right.
If you ask Waste Pro, they
They did.
Oh, they did, but yeah. I was gonna say, they promised they would on anything. Anyway,
So those are on my radar, it just hasn't been needed as of yet, so,
if there's 3 or 4 or 5 of those, you can make a comment about pretty quick.
right. So,
Or another $1,500, who knows? All right, anything else? Thank you all very much.